All right, let's get started. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining our session on powering real-time AI with MCP as a service. I am your host, Wei. Quick housekeeping items before we begin. The session is being recorded, so if you need to drop early or want to share this with teammates, no worries. We'll send the recording to everyone after the webinar. Questions are encouraged. You'll see the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to drop questions there. We will save time at the end to answer your questions. Quick disclaimer. The following is intended to outline our general product direction. The development, release, and timing of any features or functionality remains at the sole discretion of Vendia. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenters today, Dr. Tim Wagner, co-founder and CEO of Vendia, and Eleni Rundle, Senior Vice President of Product and Engineering at Vendia. Tim?
Thanks, Wei. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited to be talking about one of the most exciting advances related to artificial intelligence today.
Perfect. And I'm Eleni Rundle. As Wei mentioned, I am the SVP of Product and Engineering at Vendia. I've been in the data and enterprise analytics space for over 20 years and also very excited to be here today. Tim, back to you.
Thanks, Eleni. So we're all here today to talk about one of the most exciting, but frankly, one of the most challenging issues facing AI progress today. And that's how to make it useful for business. Now, I'm sure everybody listening to this has seen firsthand the power of Gen AI and large language models to answer questions and perform tasks that probably all of us thought, even a few years ago, only a human being could actually accomplish. But that road ahead can be bumpy. 42% of organizations see AI costs as a hurdle to delivery, and a majority of business leaders believe that data reliability is a barrier to making more progress on AI. So enterprise AI holds a lot of promise if companies can deliver trustworthy outcomes in a timely manner. And for Gen AI, a big part of that challenge is going to be data. In particular, access to business data and the systems that drive our everyday experiences: shopping, traveling, healthcare, finances, and more. Because at its heart, the challenge of making AI broadly useful to any kind of business is figuring out how to connect it safely and effectively to that enterprise data. So why is this all so difficult? Well, let's look at two different kinds of questions you could pose to a Gen AI chatbot today. First, you could ask a general knowledge question, something like, what's a great dog breed for kids? And any of the Gen AI clients out there are going to give you a really good, highly informative answer to that question because that knowledge is static. It's already baked into the LLM. It was out there in those encyclopedias, magazine articles, publications, internet articles, whatever, that LLM got trained on. So that's great. But now think about a different kind of question. Let's say you're in an airport. You're about to get on a connecting flight. You're in some other city, and suddenly that flight gets canceled. Now you need some help, say from an AI customer service agent, to figure out what to do. Maybe get on another flight, rebook. You're not quite sure. But general purpose AI clients like Claude or OpenAI by themselves aren't going to be able to help you with that because they don't have access to the information that matters in this case. The flights that are available, which has an open seat, what that seat's going to cost you. That kind of answer depends on access to live operational business systems, the things that are inside an airline. And they use the real-time data stored in those systems in order to understand what's possible and maybe even make changes to your itinerary. So without that real-time data, the AI isn't going to be super helpful in a lot of these business cases. So we know that enabling AI to be useful in many of the scenarios we want help with as a customer, like traveling, finances, ordering things online, requires it to have access to that business data and those systems. But here's where things get tricky, because that's actually a challenging problem in its own right. First, there usually isn't just the one database or the one SaaS app that has everything that AI client is going to need. The reality for AI, just like for human beings and their systems today, is that data is spread across dozens, maybe hundreds of different databases and applications inside a company. And guess what? Even more challenging, that data often lives outside a company's four walls with their business partners. Think about buying something on Amazon.com. There might be one company that is producing the goods, Amazon's acting as the seller, a third company is handling the shipping. So answering a question like, where's my stuff, might mean the AI needs to talk to 3 or more different companies to get an answer. Next, that data isn't just multi-party and multi-system, it's also what we call multimodal, meaning the data exists in many different forms. Some of it's going to be accessed through APIs, others by running SQL queries, others by reading and writing files, and so forth. And then the data is going to be in many different formats within those different access methods. And then finally, while getting access and getting data to that AI agent is going to be difficult, keeping data out of the AI agent is arguably even more important and even harder. And what I mean by that, because it sounds funny to say, is that LLMs aren't good at remembering what not to say. When you ask an AI bank teller, for example, to help you with your bank account, you're also trusting that it won't give out that information to anybody else. In other words, the data we connect to AI agents has to preserve privacy, compliance, and all of those security measures if we're going to trust that it's being seen by the right people and not by the wrong people. And then we also have to be able to audit that. We need to know what the AI told to whom. Call that the data forensics, if you will. And we'll talk a little bit about addressing that challenge as we move along here. So, how is the AI infrastructure, the AI companies, how have they and the people who are trying to get these business systems to work, how have they thought about making this possible? Well, this landscape's evolving rapidly, and several different approaches have been tried to help Gen AI clients get better at answering these real-time questions. So one of the very first things businesses attempted was building custom models or extending existing LLMs with additional modeling specific to their business. Now, this actually can be a great way to incorporate domain knowledge that doesn't really change. So maybe, for example, teaching a financial services LLM how mortgage rates get calculated. But building and testing LLMs is hard. It takes time, days, maybe weeks, which means this approach isn't going to be super helpful in our example where your flight was just canceled in the last 5 minutes, because no LLM is going to know about that. It just happened. So folks have also had the bright idea to say, why don't we leave some data out of the LLM, but still encode it in an LLM-like fashion so that it can be updated periodically and still give great, insightful answers. So this is what came to be known as RAG, or Retrieval Augmented Generation. And the basic idea here is you take some custom data, say like a company's product manuals, and you encode that in a vector database that can then be easily accessed by an LLM in real time and used to help answer questions. Now, that's a great approach for information that's kind of custom but slow moving. Think things like product manuals, training videos, corporate policy documents, contracts. But while RAG is faster than rebuilding an LLM, it still takes time to scan, convert, store, and test all that encoded data, which means it still probably wouldn't be fast enough if you're trying to rebook a suddenly canceled flight, because the copy of the data in that RAG database, could still be hours old, maybe even days. So what folks have kind of landed on here is saying, look, we need a way to connect AI agents to real live business systems and data. And that brings us to MCP, this thing called the Model Context Protocol. MCP is really a form of enterprise middleware, and it was created and open source by Anthropic specifically to help bridge this gap between AI clients like Claude and the enterprise systems that they want to access. Now, it's interesting that MCP's thesis is very different from LLM and RAG databases in a couple of important ways. First, LLM and RAG are what you might think of as push models. In other words, the only things they know are what the human beings have decided to feed to them. MCP is more of a pull model. You can connect it to kind of vast quantities of data and APIs, and then it will sort of go figure out what it needs to use at any given moment. Now, that can sound scary too, so we'll talk about how to put some guardrails down on that. And then secondly, MCP is all about leaving the data where it is. LLMs and RAG work by making copies of the data. They're essentially copying enterprise data into a more AI-friendly format and then using that to answer questions. MCP doesn't do that. It leaves all your business data where it exists today, sitting in its normal business applications and systems in its existing formats. That means a couple of important things. There's no time wasted copying or converting the data. And maybe even most important, MCP can write or update the data, not just read it, because now it's a truly bidirectional mechanism. Unlike LLMs and RAG, which are really just historical accounts of something that happened in the past. So to sum up, MCP is really the only viable option for giving AI clients access to real-time business data. And it's already been adopted by major AI vendors, making it a nice, safe, open technology bet for anyone buying or selling AI-based products and services. Now, let's start to take a deeper look at what MCP is and where Vendia begins to fit into this picture. First, One of the things that's really important to know about MCP is that it's a protocol, not an implementation. So it's like the barcode on the back of your credit card or the HTTP protocol that gets used on the internet, but it's not itself a bank or a website. It tells us how to make data available to AI, but it doesn't actually do that job for us. Now, there are three parts of the MCP protocol as it's currently defined. The first one's called tools. Tools let AI chat clients call into enterprise systems. If you're an engineer or software developer, think of this as MCP's version of a bidirectional API gateway. In our travel example, if you asked an MCP-connected AI agent to help finding a new flight, it might use tools to call into an airline's internal flight tracking system to see which flights are still taking off today, and then maybe use a different API to get to a seat reservation system to try to find you a seat for our poor unhappy traveler. The second component of MCP is what are known as prompts. This is basically a way for a data source or an application to help the AI agent understand what types of answers and questions that particular information source can provide. In our example, the prompts might help the AI agent know that flight status and seat reservations are available from some of those sources. And then the third and final component of MCP is what's called resources. This is pretty simple. Resources are just MCP's abstraction for data. So think the kind of things you could put on your laptop, files, spreadsheets, PDFs, images, and so forth. Anything that might, from contract, say, to order forms to product pictures, that might be useful to that AI agent. It's kind of like the file explorer, but it's built and designed for an AI agent to use for discovery and retrieval instead. And together, these three components provide AI agents with access to a broad range of enterprise systems and data, but only if somebody takes the time and energy to hook all of that up. And that's where this challenge really starts, because DIYing all of that while respecting privacy and compliance and security is a huge challenge. So let's take a look at what a better way of tackling the job of safely exposing all that business data to AI might look like. Now, in our example with the stranded traveler, they don't really care how MCP or AI chats work. They just want some help getting to their destination. For the data operators and software engineers who work at the airline, however, figuring out how to use MCP to connect an AI client to potentially hundreds of sources of data is a monumental task, especially given the multitude of security, trust, privacy, and compliance issues involved in handing out information about where people are traveling, and also just the breadth and depth and complexity of all those different systems, many of which are, frankly, fairly legacy. So for those engineers at the airline, building a custom MCP wrapper around every single database, SaaS service, internal application, and partner data feed, that's going to be a monumental task. And they've got three big categories of challenges they have to overcome. First, just the sheer scale of that problem, writing custom wrappers around every single one of those systems, and then doing that quickly enough to get a solution out the door in a reasonable amount of time. Second, solving what we like to call the data harmonization problem. So I may be Tim Wagner in one system, but Timothy Wagner in another, maybe in a partner's database. And now the AI agent has to somehow figure out that that's actually the same person traveling. And that's a non-trivial task on top of all of the different kinds of data and all the different ways of getting to that data. And then finally, doing all those things while carefully protecting the privacy of each traveler, the security of the airline's infrastructure and their partners' infrastructure, and then, of course, ensuring that all the laws and regulations are being met in every single answer that that AI client gives out. Now, that's a tall order. It's pretty complicated, but this is where a platform solution can also help. Vendia's mcp-as-a-service platform is a cloud-based data integration and collaboration solution, and we designed it from the ground up to make it easy to share data safely and securely, with both business partners and now with AI agents. Vendia's managed solution makes it possible to deliver these MCP-connected solutions quickly, accurately, and also safely. Now, let me pass things over to Eleni. She's going to go a little deeper on what a Vendia-enabled MCP solution looks like in practice, and then show us how this actually works. Eleni, over to you.
Thanks, Tim. The Vendia MPC server is a scalable cloud-native API layer that implements the Model Context Protocol. Think of it as a AI-ready data gateway. It is the intelligence bridge. It provides real-time, secure, and standardized access to your data in Vendia. It is fully compliant with the MCP specs, so it integrates seamlessly with LLMs like OpenAI and Claude, enabling tools like agents and copilots to query operational data, run analytics, or retrieve files live and securely. Vendia uses GraphQL as a unified interface for accessing live, trustworthy data from multiple systems, which allows teams to reach a golden real-time record without having to wrestle with each system's APIs individually. We can ingest data from systems like Salesforce or HubSpot, where that data now lives in a unified customer record. Vendia allows you to have cleansed and reconciled data with end-to-end forensics and audit capabilities, including access to data provenance information and whom the data was read by. Vendia's MCC server is fully context-aware. It includes data across a variety of modalities and ensures partners to ensure AI has the full picture. Fine-grained access controls and sharing policies ensure that each AI client only sees what is authorized to. Data is automatically available to the LLM once it is landed in a node, and table metadata and API schemas provide context to AI to reduce lookup time and improve results. Now let's take a look at tools and resources available to clients like Claude, Gemini, or ChatGPT. Under the tools endpoints, the MCP server provides everything an AI agent needs to discover and interact with your data. Get GraphQL types lets apps explore data available to the models. Explore GraphQL gives detailed metadata to help build precise GraphQL queries. Query GraphQL enables direct real-time querying of your operational data. Get Table Info and Query Iceberg Table open the door to a powerful SQL-based interface to allow access to your analytical data. On the resources side, it's all about access to file-based data. List files, read files, and Vendia's file resources provide secure and direct access to read file resources across your Vendia network. Vendia helps turn these endpoints into a rich AI-ready surface for your data while respecting access control and compliance policy that you've already put in place. In just 5 minutes, you can see how AI apps can securely query live, curated data across clouds, regions, and partners. This will include querying of multimodal data that spans operational data, files, and analytical data sets. Now let's take a look at how this works with Vendia. In this case, we have mapped a corporate travel data model based on a Salesforce hierarchy composed of account, lead, contact, and opportunities. Vendia provides a low-code UI for mapping and managing your data model. Vendia also supports file sharing, which allows customers to share contracts and other important documents with its partners. Now let's take a look at Vendia's analytical sharing capabilities. We have 4 analytical tables that have been created in Vendia. These data sets are stored on Vendia's Iceblock, which is based on Apache Iceberg, along with proprietary ledgering capabilities. With Vendia, you could also control data synchronization and filter data sets to ensure compliance. Each Vendia instance also contains a scalable MCP server, where the URL for that server can be found within Vendia resources. Next, we will head to our Claude instance and configure a new integration for Vendia MCP server. You will see as that we enable the integration, we are now being prompted to authorize Claude to interact with our Vendia environment. You will also notice that when we start to interact with the various tools, Claude will ask for additional authorization. This is a standard opt-in for any server integrated with Claude. Now let's take a look at a real-world use case. Imagine an AI assistant helping a travel company. The assistant uses GraphQL types to determine the APIs that are available to it. Next, we will query GraphQL for top opportunities. The assistant will start by ordering opportunities by the contract value amount. We can see that Bond Clark is our top opportunity. Next, we will ask the agent who works for Bond Clark. In this instance, the agent is querying the live account and contact tables. It finds that Sherry Johnson works for Bon Clark and also provides her contact's information for next steps. While these are very important insights, the Vendia MCP integration also allows us to write new data via AI. Next, we will ask Claude to create a new lead, which will issue a write mutation to Vendia. We can now see that the new lead, Tim Wagner, is now available in Vendia for access. Next, we will ask Claude to get a list of files that it is able to access. In this case, we can actually see that 3 files have been returned. Claude is now able to read and return the terms of our reward matching agreement. Now on to analytical data. Claude, query Iceberg to analyze our call logs. Claude finds the combined call logs and is able to provide a comprehensive call center analysis. This includes detecting issues and making improvement recommendations. Finally, we mentioned that Vendia provides an audit trail of activity. Claude, analyze our GraphQL block items. We can see that every read and write request is logged and secured per policy. These insights are also available on the Vendia ledger. All this runs on live data across multiple partners. This architecture eliminates data silos and makes your distributed data AI ready by design. So let's recap what we have seen in this demo. We saw that Claude could seamlessly access operational files and analytical data sets that was provided by Vendia. This included reconciliation from multiple data silos to deliver real-time data to the agent. By leveraging sharing policies and access controls, we were able to limit the data provided to AI, while the platform also provided features to cleanse, match, and merge data sets to ensure AI compliance. And finally, we saw that agents can directly interact with the data in Vendia, including reading and writing data sets. Tim, back to you.
Thanks, Eleni. We covered a lot of ground here today with the demo and the architecture. But as exciting as MCP and chat agents might seem, it's also true that these technologies really are still in their infancy. And that means things are continuing to evolve and advance at every layer of the stack. Let's take a look at what that means for us. Now, MCP and the entire ecosystem of AI agents connected to business systems is advancing quickly, and that makes it even more important to invest in partners who can help you keep up and evolve gracefully as those changes occur. We see this evolution happening in a couple of different categories here. So first of all, protocol maturity. MCP's initial release was important to unlock real-time AI capabilities, but let's be honest, it still needs work to incorporate standard enterprise middleware concepts like asynchronous notifications, failover, callbacks, and more. One of the things, for example, it can't do today is go and tap you on the shoulder when some information that you'd like to know about actually becomes available. So look for MCP to follow a path similar to the evolution of iPaaS and public cloud service buildouts over time, getting further and further into things like reliability and resilience, and then also things like asynchronous and real-time streaming capabilities. So that's sort of the depth part of it. Let's talk about breadth. While MCP still needs more build out as a protocol, it also needs more breadth as an ecosystem. The fact that it's an open source solution is helping here, as thousands of SaaS providers, independent software developers, and others consider exposing their existing solutions, not just through their APIs of today, but also now as MCP servers to enable their products and services to be visible to AI clients. That's going to take some time, but it's an inevitable transformation, and it's a really, really exciting thing happening out there in the industry. And you can kind of keep tabs on that by looking at the GitHub repository for MCP and kind of seeing who's been adding different solutions there. Now, One particular category of that we're really interested in is managed solutions. So Vendia and others, including existing middleware companies, are going to leverage their knowledge and expertise in delivering data and API integration by turning those platforms into fully managed MCP solutions. These make it faster and easier to adopt MCP and AI as a platform rather than having to DIY every single individual resource or system. And that's going to make commercial adoption of MCP easier, safer, more effective, and most importantly, faster. Now, I have this phrase I love called crossing data canyons, and this could not be more true than in the world of AI. AI agents, by their very nature, are data hungry, and often that data lives outside of a company's four walls. So you put this logic together and you realize MCP solutions are necessarily going to also have to become partner data integration solutions. Being able to reach out for information wherever it lives across partner networks to help answer questions, and then reach back again to help take actions that might span multiple companies. And then finally, smarter data integration. So one of the things that's challenging, as we mentioned, is that data isn't always represented in exactly the same ways on different systems. That's true inside companies, and then it's even more true across companies. So MCP is going to have to also start help AI agents with this problem of integrating data where from different sources that helps create a golden record. And that challenge can include everything from doing database joins to matching names and addresses to better types of discovery and indexing protocols. But over time, those challenges will get better, will start to be solved, and in fact, AI will actually help power some of them. So in summary, MCP is evolving very, very rapidly. And while that can feel like a challenge to an adopting company, staying at the leading edge of AI is also a massive competitive advantage. And of course, it helps to have a partner in this pursuit. Now let's wrap up. Safely exposing real-time business data and capabilities to AI agents can feel like a challenging proposition, but fully managed solutions like Vendia's MCP service can help. Platform solutions assist in a few different ways. First, getting to market as quickly is always imperative. AI isn't just an enabler for your business, it's also going to be an enabler for all your competitors. So scaling your business's AI connectivity rapidly is really important. And then at the same time, accuracy and timeliness of information matters. Connecting business solutions to AI provides this previously unimaginable level of customer service scalability. And then at the same time, the advantage to the company is also that you get deeper and broader insights into what your customers want and need, all of that in real time. But doing that effectively means that integration with business systems has to be easy and fast. If every database table, if every API call requires you to go get a developer and do custom coding, that could take years to finish. So look for solutions that help not just with connectivity, but also with the semantic data integration layer, things that will make AI answers truly intelligent, especially when they have to span multiple backend data sources. Now, throughout all of this, keeping your customers' data safe, secure, and private has to be the top consideration. Because even one mistake by an AI agent exposing the data inappropriately can have very negative consequences for your business, get you all the wrong kinds of headlines. So look for solutions that provide end-to-end data governance and forensics without burdening your already overloaded IT staff. And putting it all together, empowering AI with your business data is one of the most strategic investments you can make today. But how you do that and who you partner with are key considerations that can dramatically impact your business outcomes. The bottom line here, we live in one of the most exciting times ever for technical innovations in data, AI, and distributed systems. And every individual and business on the planet is going to see the benefits of it. Now back to you, Wei.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Eleni. We will answer your questions in just a moment, but what you have here are resources to some useful MCP content, including Vendia's free POC and Anthropic's GitHub repo. You can scan the QR code to access these pages directly.